I'm a son of Polish diplomats. So there are actually two places in the Middle East where I did grow up. One of them is Israel. The other one is Lebanon. So part of our school year, we had to allocate between 160 to 200 hours every year in community service. The kind of community service aspect of our upbringing in our education system played a significant role. Naturaily is a web and e-commerce development agency from Poland, and we work with various brands from all around the world, helping them with the difficulties that they face when it comes to building digital products. I would say that this is a success, finding the balance between my professional career and my personal life, and just being satisfied with what's going on in both of those worlds.
Konrad, thank you very much for joining me on Success Matters. We have met through a mutual interaction for the foundation for which I'm an advisor, Blue Bike Foundation, and your organization has very kindly created a website for us and is currently doing some website development. So thank you for joining me on Success Matters. Let's start with your background and your history, because when we met, you said to me that, oh, I grew up in the Middle East. And it was like, oh, that's a fascinating story. So let's start with that. And where did you grow up and how did you end up growing up in the Middle East?
Okay, awesome. First of all, Sansby, thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure. Yes, so starting off, well, I'm a son of Polish diplomats. So growing up, I did move quite a bit in my early life. So there are actually two places in the Middle East where I did grow up. One of them is Israel. The other one is Lebanon. You can probably hear a lot of things on the news about that region, but yes, it was a very interesting experience growing up abroad in multinational environments. So I started off my elementary school at an international American school, the Walworth Barber American International School in Israel, where the majority of my elementary school education actually started there. Came back to Poland for a couple of years, then moved to Lebanon, Beirut, Lebanon, for a couple of years, and from Beirut moved back to Israel to finish my high school education.
Wow. Okay. So from roughly the ages of 3 to 18 with a little break in between to come back to you were either in Israel or Lebanon.
Exactly.
How many years ago was that roughly?
How many years ago? I came back to Poland in 2013, so close to 12 years now. So okay. I've been in Europe ever since then, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's like Israel and Lebanon, yes, they're in the news a lot at the moment for probably the wrong reasons. What was it like growing up in both Israel and then in Lebanon? And what was the contrast like between the two countries for you?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. So obviously my first time being in Israel as a small child, it was wonderful. And I mean that in the full understanding of that word. When it comes to the differences between the countries, they're both Middle Eastern countries. They're both countries with great weather, great people, great food. So what's really interesting, especially coming from Central Europe, from Poland, being a small child and being kind of put into a very international environment, right? Growing up with kids from all around the world. That was probably one of the most thrilling and exciting experiences a young person could ask for, because you literally have friends. You have friends from Israel, the United States, Great Britain. You have friends from Japan. You know, so many different cultures, so many different parts of the world coming together and actually going to school together. You know, having fun as kids and sports. This. It was a great, awesome environment to grow up. When it comes to my move to Lebanon, I was a little bit older. So that was during my more or less end of middle school years. So of course the education aspect was a little bit more difficult rather than elementary school. No, but in general, Beirut, living in Beirut, seeing Lebanon, which, you know, at one point was considered the pearl of the Middle East. I really do understand where that term comes from and where it got its name. So Lebanon itself was a very interesting, is a very interesting country in a sense that it was a little bit different rather than Israel. It was a little bit a little bit more, how would I say this? There were contrasts between the
Hmm.
countries. And the contrasts could be experienced through daily life. When it comes to the neighborhood that we lived in Beirut, we lived in kind of the Hamra area, which is, um, a place located around various university, various schools, a lot of kind of exciting young people living there, getting their education, a lot of great restaurants. So we're really living in like downtown Beirut.
Hmm.
However, when it comes to living in Israel, we're living next to the school. The school is a little bit outside of Tel Aviv, around a 40-minute drive. So daily life was a little bit different, being in the center of a very vibrant city as compared to living on the outskirts, I would say. Um, but the similarities, going back to the similarities, the food, I'm in love with Middle Eastern cuisine, both Israeli and Lebanese food. If no one has tried, I highly recommend Lebanese food, as it's probably one of the best cuisines I've ever had. And in general, it was a very interesting. Both places are extremely interesting in terms of history. Growing up, obviously being the son of diplomats, we had a lot of family friends come over. So a large part of my private time was spent actually, showing people what both Lebanon and Israel had to offer. So in terms of the history, in terms of the 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 life from these areas, it was extremely interesting to see.
Yeah. How sheltered was your life as being the son of diplomats? I'm making an assumption here that there was a lot of security and other elements around that. Did that mean that you weren't able to interact as much with people on the ground as you'd like, or am I making a false assumption there?
No, no, I wouldn't agree with that statement. In terms of security, of course, security is always important, right? However, we didn't really focus on that as much in the day-to-day life. I had a normal upbringing. I walked to school in both countries. I was able to, hang out with my friends on weekends, go see movies, go to restaurants, of course, go to bars. Being a little bit older later on, but no, no. So in terms of security, there was always being aware of certain things. And I think that was an essential part of my upbringing. However, in day-to-day interactions with people from my school, with people outside of school, with my neighbors, etc., you didn't really feel um, threatened in any way. So in terms of security, there were certain precautions, but I wouldn't say they affected my day-to-day life.
Hmm. Okay, so you were able to experience the countries in their full glory as a result of that, without.
Yes, 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 of course. Especially when it comes to, Lebanon, if, having access to the sea and then a short car ride and you're in the mountains that Lebanon has, Farea, seeing snow, for example, the contrast is great. You literally had people go skiing and then, drive with their car and end up going to the Mediterranean Sea that same day. So
Right.
it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And both of the countries are small. So what was
Mhm.
really, really cool is, for example, living in Poland now, I want to go visit the mountains. I want to go visit the seaside. I live in Warsaw. It's actually like a 3-4 hour car ride anywhere. So the distances, you really have to plan out a trip. But what was really interesting growing up in Lebanon and in Israel was, you could plan something. We're going to the Dead Sea, for example. You get up in the morning, 2-hour drive, you're there for the whole day, you come back. So you had so many chances to do, I would say, like very interesting tourism besides history. So besides seeing, all the cultures, all the religious sites, all the architecture, one of the other elements that these countries had, especially for me being a young person and being quite active in my upbringing, playing a lot of sports, this. So there was a lot of, I would say, aqua fun. And what I mean by that is, Israel has access to the Dead Sea, it has the Red Sea, it has the Mediterranean Sea, it has the Galilee Sea. Plus, it has a lot of hot springs, it has a lot of natural water sites. So, one of the ways of hiding with the Middle Eastern heat was spending as much time, you know, being in these places and really taking all that they had to offer. So that was very, very fun.
Yeah, aquafun. I like that term. I'll coin that. I'll use that. So, what's your favorite Middle Eastern food dish then?
What's my favorite Middle Eastern food? I would say shish taouk. So shish taouk, hummus, of course, kofta, as well as some salads, tabbouleh, fattoush. Those are some of the best things out there.
Okay. And so then when you moved back to Poland, how did you find Middle East food? And did you find good Middle East food?
Did I find a couple of years being back in Poland? I did manage to find a couple of restaurants that are very similar. However, there is a little bit of a difference, right? Obviously, when it comes to the weather there, the fruits, the vegetables, they taste a little bit different being in that part of the world. Um, yeah, so all in all, I've found a couple of places that are similar, but I wouldn't say they hit the spot exactly.
Right, right, yeah. And I think you hit a good point there that the weather makes a big difference. Is like this summer I went to Italy, and the taste of the tomatoes in Italy, the taste of the salad was so much different to the taste of the tomatoes and salad you get in the UK, which probably comes from Netherlands anyway. But it's such a big contrast because just simply by the weather and the soil that's there. So I can imagine, yes, you can't find exactly the same, exactly the same flavors. As part of growing up, you also told me you were expected to do community service and help within the community. So what sort of things did you do around that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and in all honesty, that's a very interesting part of my life, and especially my upbringing. Studying in international American schools was the curriculum that they offered. So I already mentioned that sports were a big part of it, but another part of our education was actually extracurricular activities and, of course, community service. So part of our school year, we had to allocate between 160 to 200 hours every year in community service. So some of the initiatives that I participated in, there was, for example, an elder people home right next to where I lived. So I was responsible for coming there on weekends and actually spending time with some of the elderly people that were being staying there. And that was a very interesting experience in a sense that I had the ability to spend some weekends finding out about these people that had extremely interesting lives. If I'm not mistaken, one of the people that I spent the most time with was um, in his professional career. He was a high level director or something at Unilever. Unilever, the international company. So being with him, our activities mainly focused on reviewing some of his older pictures, some of his memories, going down lane, as we say, and him discussing his life. Him discussing, some of the challenges he faced back in the 60s, 70s. It was very, very interesting. But besides that, of course, we also did other things. Me being an animal lover myself, I have two dogs. Unfortunately, they're not here right now because they probably wouldn't be letting me have this conversation with you exactly. No, so one of the things we also did was I did a lot of community service at an animal shelter, both going there, helping out with the kennels, walking dogs. But then, of course, I also volunteered to adopt, to be a foster home for certain pets. So usually puppies, smaller animals. Instead of them staying there, I was fostering them and helping them find a new home. But when it comes to, for example, the American International School in Israel, uh, a really interesting thing that we did was something called the Week Without Walls. It was in this program where, obviously, starting at the start of the school year, you would have kids from, like I mentioned, different countries coming in. Some, returning for another school year. Some coming in as new people, trying to find out, what works for them in the school, etc. So the cool school organized trips where a full year would actually travel all around Israel, and participate in various very interesting activities. Also, a large portion of them were community service related. And I remember that during one of our trips, we were actually helping out Bedouins in Israel, build new houses made out of mud, if I'm not mistaken, at that time. So it was very, very interesting. So besides, speaking to these people, finding out what their daily life looks like, we actually had a chance to actively participate and help them. So that was great. Besides that, we did a lot of really interesting things. For example, I remember there was a concert organized for a charity for helping out the survivors of. There was a fire at the Ha Carmel mountain in Israel, which unfortunately there was an incident. Something a lot of places burned down at the time. So what our school did was organize a concert, a talent show, where anybody could sign up. You could sing, you could dance, you could do whatever you wanted, and all the proceeds would go to the charity to help these people. Another thing we did was partner up with Beit Hashanti, if I'm not mistaken, and this is an orphanage or a foundation working with kids, which was very interesting. And we organized in collaboration with some Israeli designers, some brands, a fashion show. We actually had a catwalk set up. I was actually one of the models. It was also a very fun experience to walk down. But yeah, so the kind of community service aspect of our upbringing in our education system played a significant role. It was very important, and it really did kind of open up your eyes on, besides work, besides your chores, the things that you have to do, there is a lot of external elements that are also equally important.
That's a really, really enriching set of activities, right? Because you gain experience that you would never have otherwise gained if you didn't have to do some 200 hours of community service. Quite a lot, actually, in the course of a calendar year, isn't it? So
That's correct.
yeah, that is fascinating. When you had to do it, as kind of like you had to do it, did you kind of resent it at the time? Because like a lot of kids, when you tell them you got to do this, it's like, oh, do I have to do it? Or were you like, oh no, this is really great?
A combination of both. Being honest, I remember there were times where you went out with your friends to a party, whatever. And then the next morning you had to be somewhere really early, and it was a Sunday morning. Maybe it wasn't the best experience at the time. No, but looking back at it, I think it was great. And what I mean by that is, obviously, a large portion of the community service was also a time that enabled you to kind of bond with your peers. So besides bonding, outside of school, etc., it gave you a lot more time to really be with these people, find out a little bit more about them, what works for them, how they approach certain subjects. So that being said, it depends. It depends. There were days where it was harder, but looking back at it, I would say it was definitely one of the things that stayed in my mind in terms of remembering the experiences that I had growing up.
Yeah, it's going to be like a lifetime experience, right? And that really kind of leads nicely to the Blue Bike Foundation, and really what Blue Bike Foundation is looking to do, which is to create new realities for children and young adults through various programs. Was it your community service that then led you to say, I'll do some work with Blue Bike Foundation to help with the websites and the like?
Yeah, a little bit for sure. No, but meeting Anita, and discussing the charity, what your plans are in terms of how you're planning to actually help these kids. That's a vital role, because I think part of my upbringing, I had a privileged upbringing. I was able to experience a lot of things that others might have not, and I think giving unprivileged children the ability to have fulfilling experiences that will help in their future lives. And for me, what's most important is the mission that you guys are on. So helping communities, helping kids, and I think that's part of our kind of DNA within the business itself. Naturaily always believes in doing what's best, what's good, besides, of course, providing great services, etc. we do care about the human aspect of our work. So besides Blue Charity, we've done some other charity work as well in the past. And I think that's a trend that will continue. So we're looking forward to doing a lot more things with you guys.
So naturally, for those that aren't familiar with your organization, what does Naturally do, and what's your role within that?
Yeah, so Naturaily is a web and e-commerce development agency from Poland. So we work with brands of all sizes, ranging from smaller startups to enterprises by providing them high quality web and e commerce development services. We have a team of over 30 specialists, ranging from designers, developers, project managers, and we work with various brands from all around the world, helping them with the difficulties that they face when it comes to building digital products. So, a large client base of ours is US, United Kingdom, and the DACH region here in Europe. When it comes to the services that we focus on is, like in your case, building websites, but also building online stores and various applications. So that's us in a nutshell. And my role within the business is business development in general. I'm the head of growth. So I'm responsible for a lot of the sales, partnership, and some of the offline marketing activities at the business.
Right. Okay. All right. So it's a pretty comprehensive range of services that your organization provides around digital. And I suppose
That's
digital is really where so many businesses are, right? When you look at startups, they're all pretty much have digital as core to what they do, rather than being bricks and mortar or what you might call traditional businesses.
Exactly. And especially when it comes to e-commerce, I think that's a trend that is continuing. More and more brands, more traditional brands, everybody with the pandemic kind of realized that, we have to go into the digital space. So I think that's a trend that is going to continue. And a lot more businesses, startups, etc. The majority of them are thinking of, what can we do? What kind of product can we create that can really impact lives if it's a kind of B2C service, or how it can optimize business processes when it comes to B2B. So in terms of the companies that we, for example, work with, we're partners with some of the leading PR agencies, companies working with a variety of different businesses. We come in as their technological partner, telling them, okay, this is what the client wants to achieve. These are the kind of business goals. We recommend doing so with this approach, with this technology, using modern technology to actually impact a business. That's what's most important for us.
Right. Okay. That's cool. So as you know, Konrad, this podcast series is called Success Matters. And I always ask my guests, what does success mean to you? So what does success mean to you?
And that is probably the most difficult question that you're going to ask me today, in all honesty. I think it's going to be difficult to provide a very, very simple answer. I think when it comes to success, it really depends on the specific person. Every person has their own definition. When it comes to my definition, I think it's a combination of small and larger successes. Successes both in terms of my professional career, my life, as well as my personal life. So growing up, especially being a child, I would consider success being something completely different than what I consider it to be today. So back in high school, I would say a success for me was, passing exams or getting into a great university. Now, what success means to me is doing something that I love doing every day, waking up and enjoy going to work, enjoy doing what I'm doing, but also, going on great walks with my dogs, having the ability to spend time with my almost 2-month-old son. I would say that this is a success, finding the balance between my professional career and my personal life, and just being satisfied with what's going on in both of those worlds. So I think that's what success is for me.
Okay, yeah, and it's true. People's view of success changes over time as you have life events, like having a newborn son or 2-month-old son now.
Yes.
That your whole perspective of the world will have changed as a result of that. So yeah, it's great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm part of the reason of this podcast series is really different people have different perspectives on success, and I like to explore it with everyone on these podcast episodes. So something else I do is I ask a previous guest for a question for my next guest. And my previous guest asked the question, and I shall read it out to you here. How do you listen to what's not said?
Oh, wow. How do you listen to what's not said? That's a very good and that is a tough question. So in the aspect of human interaction, I think the best way to answer that question would be just really looking at the person, trying to understand the emotions. It's commonly known that when it comes to human interaction, if I'm not mistaken, like 70% of how we communicate actually is our body language. So I think that's a very important factor in understanding what's not said. Yeah. So I think it's a combination of using all of the senses to be able to really understand what the other person is trying to say or persuade. Yeah.
Yeah, and the person who asked that question, Oscar, he is a listening specialist, and he's written a book called How to Listen. And when I received the book, I was like, how to listen? That's like, sounds a bit crazy. How can you write a whole book about how to listen? But actually, when you read the book, you realize that we filter so much out of what we hear and of what we see. And to your point, we listen as with our eyes as much as we listen with our ears. We listen as much with our emotional aspects as we do with our ears. And so there's all these other factors that play a role in listening. So I put you on the spot with that question. It was a difficult one to answer, but you handled that well. Do you have a question for my next guest?
So what would be my question for the next guest? So my next question would be, what was the most life-changing moment you ever had, and why?
What was the most life-changing moment you ever had, and why? Okay. All right. Well, what would you say is your most life-changing moment?
My most life-changing moment, actually, there was one quite difficult moment that I went through a couple of years back. So back in 2022, I was actually walking my dogs in the forest, and unfortunately, I got bitten by a tick. So a tick, and I actually had, yeah, more or less, I didn't even realize it. I didn't see it on my body. Fast forward a month. I come back from Naturally's integration party. I'm already here in Warsaw. And literally 2 days following that, I end up going to the hospital. Unfortunately, I ended up being paralyzed. I had a viral infection from the tick. I ended up having brain swelling, so encephalitis, meningitis, and I was paralyzed for 3 months, mainly my upper body. Yeah, and altogether, I ended up losing like 35 kilograms of mainly muscle from my top half. So that was quite life changing in terms of yeah, it was a very difficult period of my life going back into shape, and then the whole process of 6 9 months to be able to actually just move, be independent, or walk again. That was quite difficult. It was, and I would say that's one of my largest successes quite recently. Jumping over that disease. But yeah, I would say that was one of my most life changing experiences I've had quite recently. Yeah,
Wow,
and
that's yeah.
it really does make you really understand. People always say this, and if you're fully healthy, etc., you take it for granted. But from my perspective, it really did put a perspective on certain things, especially how important that personal life, your health, the way your body kind of reacts, the way your body, how important treating yourself well and making sure you're healthy is in your daily life. Because with literally overnight going from someone that was fully healthy, doing a lot of sports, this, ended up in a hospital bed, without the ability to eat by myself, not to mention other things. Yeah, it was definitely a life-changing moment. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine how you must have felt at the time when that happened. It must have been quite frightening. Probably, am I ever going to get better? Is this life for me now? All those thoughts must have gone through your mind at the time. And to lose 35 kilos of muscle mass it takes a long time to bring that back, right? To put that back on and to
I'm
get that strength back.
still in progress, I would say. Yeah, so I'm still, yeah, I work out quite a lot to be able to do so. But yeah, going back to what you said, it was, especially when it comes to, besides the physical aspects, I think the psychological aspect. Yeah, that was, I've honestly, I've never gone through anything like that. And I don't really have that much, that I've never had that many experiences of interacting with people that gone through similar
Mm.
challenges. So going through that in the middle of summer, when in Poland, right now it's almost winter, it snowed today, but in the middle of summer, Poland is the coolest place. It's sunny, everybody's out and about, there's so many things you can do, but being stuck in a hospital bed, it wasn't the most pleasurable experience. But no, but I've had a chance to meet wonderful people who, I've listened to their stories, their life-changing moments that, due to some events that happened there, unfortunately, they're going to end up being paralyzed for the rest of their lives, etc. And it really makes you understand that how important, like I said, some of the aspects of your life really are.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. And do you have any lingering effects? Because I mean, I expected you to say you got Lyme disease, which is that has a longer term piece around it. Is that part of that?
No, thankfully not. So Lyme disease is a bacterial infection. I had the viral version. So the viral
Right.
version is much stronger in the beginning. What I mean by that is, it really did attack me quite significantly. It attacked my spinal cord. It was very heavy. So I spent a couple of weeks not being able to move. The first initial couple of days, I was like out cold, not really remembering going in and out of consciousness. But then, as the weeks kind of progresses, the body fought the virus itself. It was able to kind of destroy it, right? So now my body is, I would say, a little bit more immune to it. Um, but I don't have effects that can come back at any point or another. One of very common thing with the Lyme disease is, for example, people don't even know that they have it. So
Mm.
let's say you got bitten by a tick. 10 years later, your hand goes numb. Doctors check up, like, what's going on, and then typically the diagnosis is, at one point or another, you ended up getting Lyme disease. So in terms of my physicality, the only thing that is still a little bit annoying is that you do get these cramps sometimes, cramps or muscle spasms, because the whole nervous system was attacked by the disease.
Right.
And your hand, my right hand, was the one that got the most of it, and obviously your hand has the most nerves. So building the nerves, rebuilding takes years. So it got much better after the physical therapy. But yeah, that is the only prolonged effect that I had. But I am exercising all the time. I am working on it. So hopefully that won't be the case soon.
Wow, yeah. So you spent all this time as a kid growing up in the Middle East to going out to deserts and all sorts of places where you might expect to get, snake bites or whatever else.
Yeah.
Instead, back in Poland, one little tick caused all this mayhem
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, deserts, scorpions, snakes. I've seen it all. But yeah, so if I could say anything, I would definitely recommend getting a vaccine if possible. If you believe in vaccines, which I do, there are vaccines that can prevent going through what I went through. So I would highly recommend that to
Right.
any of the listeners. Yes.
That makes sense indeed. Yeah. So, Conrad, we're nearing the top of our time now. It's been a fascinating conversation. And thank you for sharing your story. If people want to get in touch with you, or to find out more about the work that Naturaily does, or even some of the community stuff that you've done in the past, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I think the best way would be via LinkedIn or via email. So when it comes to my LinkedIn, Konrad Kucel, my name, you'll definitely find me on there. When it comes to my email, konrad.kucel@naturally.com, and I'll be more than happy to chat and let you know how we can help.
Okay, great. Well, thank you once again for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
To find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.